Hello and welcome to Mimosa Tech Talk, brought to you by Mimosa Networks. Hi, I'm Dustin, and today we're on episode number 47, talking about beads that go on necklaces, bracelets. What kind of bead are we talking about again, Jim?
We're talking about the $142 billion bead is what we're talking about today.
I see. So before we get into the recent bead changes, can you give our listeners a quick refresher on what bead and not beads actually is, and why it's become such an important program for closing the digital divide here in the United States?
Sure, absolutely. So number one, the BEAD program, which stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, is the latest in federal programs to offer broadband for all, to try to reach out to as many American citizens as possible to offer broadband access. This is a continuation from the CAF, CAF2, RDOF funds, et cetera. So this is the latest one. The reason why there's so much excitement around it is the magnitude of it. $42 billion is being allocated towards this. It's being managed by the NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And we're in the process right now of figuring out how to get that deployed.
Great. So I know BEAD has changed multiple times. Do you think this is the last time it'll change? Is this the final revision?
Well, for quick history, originally when BEAD came out, there were certain parameters put around it that weighted fiber optic deployments as the preferred solution. There was even phrases using it as the gold standard. Obviously, there's issues associated with that. As money gets allocated out to all of the states and territories that received initial funding, or at least the allocation to it, fiber will only go so far. Trenching in fiber costs a lot of money. There was a revision that was put in place around the June timeframe of 2025 that basically changed some of those rules, where now the parameters put around it is looking for the most cost-effective way of deploying out and trying to reach more citizens. So essentially trying to stretch out that $42 billion to the best of its ability. And with that, one of the biggest changes that occurred was basically removing the heavily weighted fiber optic deployment towards technology agnostic, which really lent itself more towards wireless and also LEO type satellite deployments. So what we're probably going to see is the initial push for fiber is obviously going to get allocated more towards FWA, unlicensed spectrum, LEO satellites, et cetera. To what extent everyone is trying to see.
Okay, great. So that seems like a really exciting opportunity for our WISP customers everywhere in the United States. So where do you see Mimosa fitting into the BEAD reset?
So number one, in regards to WISP customers, absolutely. I mean, this is a chance. Traditionally, wireless deployments, a lot of the customers originally were having we'll call it an issue. They were going to have to potentially pivot if they wanted to basically be involved with a BEAD program. If they were a traditional wireless deployment, they were going to have to go hybrid and go with fiber in certain aspects. Now they can rely on wireless technology to still provide the solution set out there and be able to receive some of those funds. Now, let's just be honest. In some markets, fiber is going to be probably the predominant offering. It does very well. We'll call it a tool in the toolbox, but it's not going to be nearly as weighted as it was before. Now, in regards to how Mimosa fits into this, obviously, with our unlicensed broadband technology, we can offer a very compelling solution out there. We are involved right now with one of the world's largest, if not the largest, unlicensed fixed wireless deployment with our owner and major customer, Reliance Jio. And because of that, we can offer that same solution set to everybody in the world, specifically in the United States.
Great. So do you think tier one players in the United States will lean on fixed wireless for BEAD builds? Similar, would they build out similar to what you were just talking about, or would they do something else?
Let's talk globally, and then we'll narrow it down to the U.S. So every major carrier in the world is looking towards spectrum, right? Spectrum is basically the lifeblood. And if you can utilize unlicensed spectrum where you don't have to spend money to go out there and access it, everyone is looking at it. So it doesn't matter where you're at around the world. We're dealing with tier ones globally. But now when you focus in the United States, if you talk a tier one, whether it's telco, whether it's a cable operator, whether it's a fiber provider, everyone is looking to see how they can maximize this resource, this spectrum that's unlicensed today. And so I would say everyone is evaluating it to what extent they deploy. Obviously, selfishly, we want them to deploy a lot.
Sure.
But everyone is evaluating it. You'd be kidding yourself if you weren't in those type of discussions.
Right. So as we wrap up our discussion on BEAD, there's also been a lot of chatter around CBRS and potentially 6 gigahertz being put up for auction and or upper 6 gigahertz being locked down to make unlicensed capped out at 6425. How do these spectrum changes affect WISPs and operators, especially as it pertains to the BEAD reset?
Well, so first off, as part of, we'll call it the big change with BEAD and a lot of items that are going through Congress right now, we'll say that there's a lot of discussions in regards to what's going to happen with CBRS and the upper bands within 6 gigahertz. Nothing is formal, nothing is finalized, but there's a lot of discussions. Obviously, that causes a little angst, especially if your network is really managed by this. Right. Now, from a unlicensed viewpoint, we obviously want to have more unlicensed spectrum available. Again, lifeblood for everyone that's involved with this type of market. But I think it's going to cause a lot of, we'll call carriers to evaluate their plans going forward. If there is a issue, if there is a fear factor, a concern that potentially a spectrum is going to go away, you obviously have to evaluate that with your plans. Now, definitely nothing is going to happen soon. This is going to take some time to kind of vet out. And it could end up being that everything just remains status quo. But at this point in time, I think for we fit in terms of Mimosa and the spectrum range that we're at, we can offer a fantastic solution that survive anything.
Great. And final thing here, for the WISPs and operators listening, what's the one thing they can do today?
The biggest item that anybody can do today, especially in regards to BEAD, is start to plan for it overall. And we're here to help in regards to it. It's a major pivot. When that announcement came out in June, people were fiber centric. Even if they were being forced into fiber, now they can pivot and say, okay, I can utilize this wireless technology. I can get a bigger expanded base. Definitely, wireless is a much more cost-effective deployment model that's been proven time and time again. Fiber will have its applications and its deployments where it will be the victorious solution wrapped around with it. But when people want to utilize wireless, they should come to us. We want to help them. We want to help them go through with it, plan for it. I think it'll be a very interesting time over the next few months as these new announcements and awards are being issued out. And Mimosa wants to be here to help them out.
Right. Well, we have WISPapalooza coming up here in the next couple of months, so I'm sure that people will be asking us even more questions as that rolls around. So we'll be here to help you with whatever we can, whenever we can. Right, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. We very much looking forward to talking to people in regards to WISPapalooza, sharing what we've been doing on a global stage. And we should have some interesting announcements coming up for WISPapalooza. So hopefully everybody's looking forward to it. I know we are.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for your time today, Jim. I appreciate you coming on to talk about BEAD and not, beads. I would expect BEAD to be more important for WISPs. So thanks for coming. And we'll see you all on our next episode or at WISPapalooza, whichever comes first. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Dustin.